Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
Welcome to another episode of Paranormal After Dark with me, the Roadie. Right, this week on the show, Sam Collier from Paranormal New Zealand and New Zealand UFO investigator Peter Hassall, and we're going to have a bit of a roundtable discussion on these UAP sightings and disclosures that have happened the last year or so in the States mainly. How are you guys?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having us.
No worries at all. Right, I'm going to start with this first one, this last one that came up recently, this alleged egg that's been shown on a film that Ross Coulthart had on film. What do you guys think of it, Peter?
Well, it looks fake to me. There's nothing to really measure scale at all. And if there's nothing to show scale in it, like people on the ground or whatever, you can only go by gut instinct. And it just gives me the impression of being small in scale. And that's just a gut instinct. There's nothing, I've got no evidence to back it up or whatever. But as a video in and of itself, it's only a short clip. You don't see before or after that bit of video. It really could be anything, and it could easily be faked, so it's not strong evidence of anything at all, unfortunately.
Your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, every time a little bit of news comes on, then we're going to get a little hint of disclosure, I do get excited, and the whole romanticism of it all, I'm like, yeah, this is it. But yeah, I agree with those sentiments. I mean, if it looks like an egg and it rolls like an egg, chances are probably an egg.
Well, the thing for me, guys, is being a lighting designer, the thing that struck me was the shadow. If you have a look at the shadow looks like there's a light source from the left because the shadow's long out to the right, okay? Now, if that guy was supposedly secretly filming that from straight above and the light was from straight above, you'd have a little shadow underneath the egg. So my question is, again, with Peter saying what's the context of happened before and after, I'm also asking what's happening during. Do we have someone over to the left with a big spot on it, or is that just someone done their little sort of AI thing and put a shadow in, not realising the properties of where light would come from when it hits the shape of it?
I mean, I think the presumption is it's meant to be an object about 10 metres long or something of that nature, 8 to 10 metres long, along the longer end of the egg shape, and the thing going down towards it is meant to be like coming down from a aircraft or a helicopter or whatever, with the thing sort of being trailing along underneath it. Like I said, it's nothing extraordinary, it's nothing earth-shattering, and honestly these days you could do something which looks incredibly convincing, and then with the camera panning to the guy piloting the helicopter or whatever, and it could look very convincing. And this is part of the problem is, historically, every bit of evidence, be it for Bigfoot or UFOs or Loch Ness monsters or whatever, is blurry photos, right? There's very little high quality stuff out there, and videos as well. And there's a very high percentage of those have been proven to be hoaxes, much more higher percentage for reports of things anomalous. And now, of course, it's possible to do very convincing looking fakes. So we're always going to have the issue going onwards. Some of these fake AI videos of retro style movie trailers and things, they're just going to look more and more and more convincing, both videos as well as still photos. So it's going to be almost impossible to prove something is real of this nature.
And the issue I have too is the journalists involved with it. I mean, I don't know much about this Ross Coulthart guy. I don't know if you guys do or not, but he kind of hyped this up. This was a big deal, right? This egg thing. This was going to be the thing. And even with the commentary he gave on that egg thing, he was trying to hype it up, but it was a real letdown. I'm beginning to think that Coulthart's a bit of a charlatan, really.
Well, yeah. I think there tend to be two types of people involved with all this sort of disclosure stuff, and the government's got alien bodies and crashed UFOs, and the government's going to reveal the truth in a year now, which has been going on since 1950. So I'm not holding my breath. But I think the people fall into two groups. One is gullible people who believe what other people tell them uncritically and report it as fact, even if there's no sort of evidence to back up what they're saying. And the others are deliberate charlatans, grifters, making money off it and doing hoaxes. The infamous alien autopsy video comes to mind.
So this Coulthart, where does he fall, Sam, Peter? Where do you think he falls? Because he does reports on lots of other things, and he gives the air of credibility with some of his reports from other stuff. But you think he's in which category is he falling into?
I think he's a bit of an it man at the moment in terms of reporting on the UAPs and NHIs. I guess he's this generation of George Knapp, even though George Knapp's still around. I guess he's the one that's getting the stories, getting the whistleblowers and talking to them and releasing the information. Whether he's correct or not, and whether the interviewees are correct or not, he's getting the conversation out there, I guess.
And see, you've just touched on something there that I want to lead to shortly. We might as well talk about now. These whistleblowers, are they really whistleblowers? I mean, in terms of the setup of, if we're talking about a government sort of secrecy thing, and these guys are suddenly allowed to come out and reveal things. For example, the one that grates my gears is this David Grush guy who sat in Congress and said, "I was told this. Someone told me they saw this. I read this." How is that a whistleblower? He's just it's hearsay, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess you could argue the people that told him are whistleblowers, but he's just uncritically accepting what other people are telling him. Look, Lou Alessandro, it's possible that some of these people are in both camps. He could be uncritically believing what other people are telling him. He could be a liar and a charlatan, or he could be uncritically passing on stuff and still making money out of it. Yeah, there is that sort of possibility. But look, I'm like Fox Mulder. I want to believe. I truly do want to believe.
Me too.
And I'm not necessarily saying an extraterrestrials visiting us, because there are other exotic explanations for UFOs and entities like ultra-terrestrials, time travelers from the future, beings from other dimensions or whatever. But, and perhaps something like that explains some of the truly seemingly inexplicable reports. I don't know. And you can't claim any of those things because no one knows. But unfortunately, this sort of stuff just discredits the whole field. look at the alien mummies thing recently. Cheaply made models from plaster and other bits and pieces. No different to the old fake Fiji mermaids that P.T. Barnum displayed one of, made out of sewing part of a monkey onto part of a fish. And, stuff like that's making international news on the TV news. And then it gets disproven and everyone's laughing at anyone interested in UFO research. Or people are saying, oh, it's all deliberately discrediting it, because it's real, but, the government or whatever is, switched out for things or what have you.
Well, see, this is where I'm trying to get at, I guess, is if we're saying that this is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what the hell is what do we really have here? We're having Grush come out, we've had Lou Elizondo supposedly come out and say stuff, other people. One, what have they got to gain from it? And if it's a government thing putting them out there, what's the end game? What are they trying to, is it a smoke screen for something? Are they creating a story about UFOs so we don't see something else? What do you reckon's going on, guys?
Well, I think they've also got quite a bit to lose as well. I mean, they're facing jail time as well if they're actually truly lying about all of this stuff as well. So that's right. What have they got to gain from this?
Well, I mean,
they're testifying and saying that what they've been told and what they're about to say is true and correct. So on one side they've got the law, and then potentially what they're saying they could be putting their lives on the line. If that's true, if that's what they're saying, someone's going to take them out for saying too much.
I do think that's a big if. I mean, Lou Alexandre 3 years ago, he said, I don't do drugs, I don't do dangerous things. If anything happens to me, it's because I've talked. But he first raised all this stuff in 2017, and nothing's happened to him yet. Now, if what he was saying was true, and he was breaking national security documents in the law that he had agreed to, he would have been jailed by now.
And that's the very least that would have happened, jailed. If that's what I'm trying to say. It's unfortunate for those of us who believe, as you say, whether it's extraterrestrials, whatever. I'm a subscriber to the ancient alien theory, but like you say, those mummies. How do you talk to someone seriously about that when this sort of stuff's going on and it's just been discredited out of hand? Because people are saying things like, "Oh, the government's put them there to try and put us off." I mean, to me, I don't see what if there's extraterrestrials and they're in contact with governments of the world, right? They're in control, surely, not the Americans. They can reveal themselves whenever they want to reveal themselves. Why would they be holding back and allowing America to control the narrative? That's my thoughts.
Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. No government on Earth, including the American government, knows any more than any of us in this call about what UFOs are. I've never seen any real evidence that any government is any piece of a crashed UFO or a whole UFO or an alien body or anything. Okay, it's possible. Everything is possible, but there is no evidence. And I think if you want to invoke weird government stuff, there is a small possibility in my mind that some of this stuff could be psyops by governments to test public reaction to if we really did make mass contact with aliens or stuff of that nature.
So, do you think there's possibly an end game to that? Like, as you say, they're testing us for the possibility of an interaction. Do you think that's a potential?
I don't think they're testing us because they're already in contact or anything. I think it's purely if it is that, some of these things, then it's just, thinking of the possibility of in future if we ever, got a radio signal or laser signal from space, which is indisputably alien, how would human society handle that news? It could be along those lines. But again, that's still purely speculative on my part. Let me give you one example of two examples, actually, of wild claims, right? And there's zero evidence for these, but there are probably hundreds of thousands of people out there believing them. The recent forest fires just north of LA. Okay, so you've possibly heard about the Jewish space lasers thing causing forest fires, which Marjorie Taylor Greene is a big proponent of. But it's all circulating around on the internet now. I've seen it a few times, that the fires set by the lasers were to destroy alien bases underground.
That's a new one on me.
Aliens and tunnels under that area. But the really interesting thing is there's a counter story in which is to rescue thousands of kidnapped child slaves in the tunnels. There's supposed to be 50,000 children in tunnels under the Getty Museum, which, by the way, was safe from forest fires. Both of them are mutually exclusive, unless the aliens are holding the children kidnapped.
Well, that's correct, isn't it? It has to be that way. They come up with some great theories. So, we're talking about recent events. These drones, I've heard a lot of people on there saying, they have to be alien because they fly in formation and stuff. Well, you can control them, remote control and formation and stuff. I've seen displays of it happen. So, let's put aside the extraterrestrial thing for a moment, and let's say it's something. The excuse that I heard that I don't buy was one of the US senators saying something like, oh, it's the Iranians. And I'm thinking, well, if Iran's got a ship off, Iran has a ship off your coast and they're flying drones over your military bases and you're just sitting there going, no big deal. I don't buy that. So I kind of equate this to the airship sightings back in the early 1900s, Peter, where something was going on en masse. People were seeing stuff. It was definitely there. But what the hell is it?
Yeah, so look, it's, the UFO mystery is the world's biggest, longest running, most complex mystery. But there is that interesting aspect of it. I mean, some of the drones that people were seeing with mistaken aircraft and bright stars and planets and so forth, and some are undoubtedly people sending up drones. But a couple of interesting aspects is, why was it never happening earlier? And why has it stopped now? Okay. People also tend to have forgotten that exactly 2 years ago, we had a similar thing of drones everywhere over a few states in America and also in England.
Well, that's my point. The same thing happened with the airships, didn't it? It happened in England, Australia, America at the same time. So something kind of was going...
If we work our way backwards...
Yeah.
From 1977 to 1979, we were mystery unmarked black helicopters, or helicopters with lights on them flying at night. Back to 1946, the ghost rockets over Sweden and some of Europe. Foo Fighters during that era in World War II. Going further back, 1920s and 1930s, mystery airplanes and ghost flyers. I mean, as you say, going back 1912, 14, 16 was South Africa, England, etc. airships. 1909 was the New Zealand airships. 1897 was airships all over America and Canada. 1896 and a bit earlier was mystery balloons. Now, most of these reports were people seeing lights in the sky or lights on a dark object in the sky. And they were connecting the dots, if you like, and interpreting what they were seeing in terms of what they understood as technology at that time. So you went from balloons to airships to planes to rockets to drones, to helicopters, to drones. Yet people are largely seeing the same things: lights on some dark shape at night, manoeuvring in unusual manners. So I think part of it is we're just interpreting things in terms of what we are familiar with current technology.
That's a good point there. You're on Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. My special guests, Peter Hassall and Sam Collier. We're having a roundtable discussion on UAPs, disclosure, and all of those things. We'll be right back.
Rocket 88.0 FM.
Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
'Tis I, the Roadie. It's after hours, it's the darkness, and we're here on Paranormal After Dark. Nightmares and Daydreams from San Francisco there is the name of the band and the album, and the track was called The Breaks. My guests, Peter Hassall, New Zealand UFO investigator, and Sam Collier from Paranormal New Zealand. The discussion continues. Was the drones a smokescreen for something that we haven't figured out yet? Likewise, were the helicopters a smoke? Were there events after the helicopters and after the airships, or around the time that happened, that these things could have been a smokescreen for? And has something happened around this time that the drones were covering? You know, if we put aside the extraterrestrial theory.
Do you mean like a government?
Well, anything, an event, something's happened. Like, was the government or a country or someone doing something that they didn't want us to see, and all our attention is on the drones or the airships or whatever, and subsequently something else has happened. I mean, if you put aside it's the extraterrestrials, what is it? Why? You know?
Just because there's a lot of coverage of drones or mystery helicopters or whatever. That doesn't exclude all other news. Everything else is still in the news, you know. The Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Palestine, bad government policies in New Zealand and America, wherever. All those other things are still reported on. It's like if you have a few major plane crashes, and there's a lot of publicity about those, it doesn't mean other things aren't reported. So I don't really see that at all. I just think it's become an interesting story because a lot of people report seeing them. The same as any UFO flap of UFO reports. Yeah, if you suddenly get a whole lot of people seeing stuff in the sky that they can't identify, and a lot of people start calling up newspapers or posting it online or whatever, and the mainstream media pick up on it, it becomes a story.
So I want to bring Sam in here. So I'm thinking at this of a different angle. So maybe we're missing something here. Maybe the paranormal investigators are missing something here. Maybe these lights that we're seeing in the sky are in fact paranormal. You see what I mean?
They could be. I mean, there's a theory that they're plasmoids or some ball of energy as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos on social media through X and TikTok and Facebook and that sort of thing. Some of them are actually quite interesting because they're, the general public are posting these videos. I mean, a lot of them I can look at it and go, well, that sounds like a drone. That sounds like a helicopter. There was one in particular that really had my interest, and I think it was actually taken in Arizona, not Jersey, but there was a bright ball in the sky, and you can clearly see a drone flying up to this ball in the sky, and then as it touches the ball in the sky, it quickly drops. I mean, there could be a logical explanation for that, but I have a feeling that there could be two things going on in the sky over Jersey as well, and one's to observe and one's something anomalous. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but there's also the theory that the drones themselves were there to look after, to look for nukes, missing nuclear weapons and things like that. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but yeah, maybe it's us and them up in the sky.
It's certainly food for thought because, what is it? I'm like you, I want to believe in the extraterrestrial thing, but I find it hard to believe. So all this time's gone by since Roswell and all these first ones that we've seen, and they haven't. Because I honestly believe I'm a Star Trek fan, and if you look at, you've got more advanced races on there like Vulcans. If they wanted to reveal themselves, they'd reveal themselves. They're not going to listen to any government. They're going to tell the government, we're coming. We're going to come on TV and we're going to tell him what. Unless they've done a deal with world governments over something, surely if they're around, they're going to reveal themselves. I'm starting to think more along the lines now as I get older of people talk about the Black Knight satellite being something observing us. I'm beginning to wonder if some of these things aren't probes, as it were, like a Voyager or a Pioneer that has come from somewhere else that are actually unmanned, and they're observing us, and they're not beings, as it were, because where's the tangible proof of any being, really? There's the odd case like the Lonnie Zamora one, which was fairly compelling, but then it could have been, in the 60s, it could have been some sort of strange test. But really, I'm beginning to wonder if it isn't something extraterrestrial, but it's in fact an unmanned probe.
Well, Lonnie Zamora's sighting in Socorro, New Mexico, of an egg-shaped object, roughly the size of the one in the video.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a very credible sighting. Again, it's quite complicated, but the supposed explanations of a experimental craft straying from the test site, or college pranksters sending up a hot air balloon, they don't match the facts at all. And there were a couple of corroborative witnesses who either saw or heard the object elsewhere, which were tracked down later. I think the interesting thing we touched upon just before about the balls of light and so on, that's one of my favourite areas of interest. And, strange balls of light have been seen either high in the sky or at ground level or going through houses and all sorts for centuries. And many of them were labelled as ball lightning, although that's sticking a label on it because we have no idea what ball lightning is or how it operates. And similarly to UFOs, there's a wide variety of sizes, colours, and so on, different behaviours. They tend to fall roughly into two main categories: what you might call true ball lightning during storm conditions. It's noisy, it moves erratically, it often explodes and causes damage or injury or death to people. And other balls of light often seen during normal atmospheric conditions that are silent, seem to be far more specific in their movements, and just vanish or fly away without exploding or causing any damage whatsoever. And some people have suggested, and I think it is a reasonable possibility, that some of those appear to behave very intelligently. So then you have the idea of super advanced probe technology or some sort of living form of being. But honestly, we have no idea. And that's one of the more fascinating things.
So moving...
and where it kind of overlaps ufology and ghost research, I think it's along a railway line. I think it's a ghost, waving a lantern as he's walking along the tracks. I see it near an airport or a military base or elsewhere. They think it's a UFO. But people are seeing the same thing. We're just sticking different labels on it. But we really have no idea what they are.
And of course, so that leads me going back to, if we move back in the sequence into what's happened in the last few years or so, then we go back to the David Fravor and the other pilots who said they saw the gimbal and the other things. Again, is that just balls of energy? Is that foreign technology? Is it American black ops that they're not telling the military? I mean, again, that stuff was quite compelling because of the speeds it was supposedly travelling at.
I don't think it's any human technology at all. There's the odd sighting of those, which could have been like a balloon, and some of those could have been drones, especially some of the nighttime footage. But again, that raises a question of how can the US Navy do nothing about night after night dozens of drones flying from some foreign ship at them? Seems extraordinary. But yeah, some of those videos and pilot testimonies sound very much like true UFOs to me, whatever true UFOs are, but they're not even secret, man-made human creations. They far outperform anything we've got. And they always have.
And that's the thing for me. They talk about, it's a foreign adversary, but if it was a foreign adversary, knowing how warlike we are as a race, they'd just use that technology against us, wouldn't they? They wouldn't just buzz us,
Well, exactly. If you had that technology, if any other foreign to the USA country had it, why wouldn't you just fly it in, drop, fire some missiles and zoom off? No one knows who you are.
Well, I can't remember whether it was Ryan Graves or Fravor, but one of them did say that he felt as though these objects were just playing with him. He said he felt as though if they wanted to take him out, they could have, because they were always as if there was a psychic element to them, and they were one step ahead and always, able to do the extra mile before them. And I guess, one other thing to consider is the speeds that these things were going as well. I mean, surely they weren't piloted, with G-forces and things like that. It's not anything that we've got.
Well, that's exactly it.
Any human being could survive. You'd have to have a pilot possibly in a completely liquid environment, but even then it would be dodgy. But, UFOs have been doing right-angle turns and flying circles around aircraft at thousands of kilometres an hour for decades.
Yeah.
So it's not anything new. It's just we did get a few interesting gun camera bits of footage. There have been some over the decades, but I do think that if there's one thing governments are keeping secret, is much better video footage of stuff like that.
Back in 2017 and compared to what they've got now, camera quality is a lot better now.
Admittedly, those videos, we would still not know of their existence if they hadn't been leaked. They were all leaked, so we'll give the whistleblowers that.
That's exactly right, and the quality of video now, that's what touch on your point earlier, that a lot of the supposedly modern ones are blurry, horrible, grainy photos with the camera technology now, and I think that's what this egg thing was an attempt to do. It was slightly better quality than a lot of photos we've seen, and I think that might have been an attempt to, look, we've got a better quality film of it, but most of them, as you say, are low quality pictures. And I think you're right. If the governments of the world, and I'm not just going to say the government of the USA, because I believe every government's probably got it, if they've got better quality photos, that's what they're holding on to, for sure.
I definitely do think there's stuff they're sitting on in terms of video evidence especially, but I don't believe they're sitting on alien bodies or crashed UFOs. And look, I honestly, hand on heart, I cannot say that new video of the egg-shaped object is fake. It could be real, but there's nothing definitive in it to prove it, and no story and witnesses and things. The person that filmed him, a helicopter pilot, come forward and said, we'll stand up in court. We'll risk going to jail to say, we filmed this, we recovered this thing,
Well, that was my point on the light. I'm not saying that it was fake. What I'm saying is that shadow was definitely from a light source further off to the left. So what's the context of that shadow? Is there a light over there shining on that, or has someone faked it and put that shadow in to make it look more impressive? You see, you don't really know.
That's the thing, we just don't know. There's not enough info in the visuals or provenance. If you produce a government document which says we've got crashed UFOs, blah, 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 and there have been fake government documents along those lines, Majestic 12 comes to mind. And some people spent a lot of time and effort looking into it and have found out, that those documents were fake. So what really, it's kind of a little contradictory, but you need people to step forward who have proven history and everything, who can say, yes, this is real, we were there, etc. Unfortunately, the only people that have stories like that, apparently somehow mysteriously, all records of their having worked at Area 51 have disappeared. They can't produce anyone, but they went to physics class.
And then there's that guy Richard Doty that appeared a few years ago that claimed to have been some sort of military policemen around those bases and that too. Where did he come from? Where did he go to? The ones that come forward with these far-fetched stories, again, the credibility goes down because you can't prove it either way. I mean,
it is possible that the government could wipe your military records and things, right? But if you claim to have studied at a particular university as part of your qualifications and so on before you work for the military, they can't make your university records disappear or everyone you met at university not remember you.
That's exactly right.
So that's where the stories fall down.
Yeah. Going back a little bit further, these congressional hearings, guys, what's your take on them and the people involved? And I don't just mean the David Grushers and the Corey Graves and that, but the Ryan Graves and that, but the congressmen. What's your take on these guys that are involved there? What were they trying to do?
I think they were trying to start the discussion. I mean, there were some good questions in there from the Congress people. Unfortunately, I feel is that with both of them, especially with both hearings, especially, they were build-ups. There was a lot of I can't talk about that. I can't talk about this. I knew somebody. It's like, well, let's get the people that can tell us. Or move forward, get these people the protection that they obviously want or need, so that they can say what they got to say. I mean, it's a bit of a letdown when they turn up and they go, I know something you don't know, but I can't tell you. Or I can only tell you in a skiff, which the general public can't hear that, but then that information never gets released in anyway. So it's not disclosure, is it?
No, I don't think so at all. And you did right there where it's kind of like, what, getting back to what Peter said about Lou Elizondo earlier, he was worried about his safety. When did he come out? 2017. It's 2025. So if these people that told whoever this are there, then surely Elizondo's the example of, hey, nothing's going to happen to you, right? If you come out and say something, the guy's still alive, right? Come out. So rather than have David Grush say, John Smith told me, John Smith, you come and tell us.
Yep.
And look, John Smith may have told him. John Smith could be completely lying. And Alexander could just be believing him. I think he's a bit like Nick Pope. He used to work for the Ministry of Defence in England and basically is a low-level clerk with about 5% of his time spent on answering letters about people sending them reports of UFOs. And ever since over time he's built himself up into being more and more like Fox Mulder.
And no one's going to argue that, are they?
Well, people like David Clark and other reputable UFO researchers are very unhappy about him.
But of course, no one in the British Ministry of Defence is going to come out and neither confirm nor deny. So, you can play that game, can't you?
Well, they do. They've got the records of where he worked and what he did, and they've asked the Ministry of Defence about exactly what he did. So he's really just sort of puffed himself up hugely. And I think part of that is, one, he's made money out of it. Two, he's become famous out of it. But also I think some people either start to believe their own bull, or they just like other people to think they know more than you. And it makes them feel self-important.
So, Sam, where do we stand on George Knapp and guys like him and Corbell in this whole web of intrigue?
I've always been a bit of a George Knapp fan. I mean, going back very, very early, he was the guy. George Knapp was always the one that talked about UFOs and had the interviews. Dare I say it, I'm a bit of a Bob Lazar fan as well. I think there's possibly some truth to what he's saying. As far as Corbell is relatively new in the scene. I don't think he's he's the guy. I think he's a little bit too excitable, and he's no better than the rest of us. He's just a bit of a fanboy, and he's got a few contacts. That's about it. And I think he could potentially be the one that ruins it for everybody, unfortunately. And I think he would be the one that's really in it for a bit of fame, a bit of money, and he's there to tell the story and have a few documentaries made out of it.
Well, I'll testify to something that Bob Lazar and George Knapp said, because both my father, who served in the United States Navy, was on an air base in Nevada, but wasn't anywhere near the south. He was in the north. In fact, I was born on that air base. I went back there as an adult. We both saw the unmarked plane leave Las Vegas airport every day with government employees on, and Dad confirmed that they used to load military supplies onto that plane. But no other information. He would always say, I don't know anything about Area 51, but he said they had the military in the 60s were loading supplies and equipment onto that unmarked plane, and people would get on it and they would get off every day. So that part of the story, at least, I can confirm is true. Where the plane was going is another matter, but I can confirm it was true.
That's disclosed information, I'm afraid.
Well, the whole thing is, they talk about Nevada there, and we're talking, my dad served in the 60s, right? And I've spoken to him at length about all these supposed things that happened over there, right? And didn't see anything, didn't hear anything. Now, if all this was going on around the military bases, this is a guy that was on naval air bases in the desert there for a while. He would have seen it if they were around. He may have heard something, but nothing. And I don't think the guy's disclosure documents or anything. He's not a top secret document. He was just a low level petty officer. So it is interesting when you hear all this stuff happened in Nevada, but speaking to someone who was actually there, didn't see it, didn't hear it.
Well, it could be a need to know basis thing. You never know. I'm not that up in the play with clearances and things like that, but I can imagine it's certainly you only know what you're told, and that's it.
Well, certainly talking about that Lazar as you did, I know Peter said that there's a lot of things where university records weren't there, people didn't know him, etc. Even with all that, right, even if he's lying, he certainly had some knowledge because he built some amazing things. Maybe it's a great story, but he actually had some great technical and scientific knowledge. Where the hell did that come from?
Look, I am, as I said, I am sceptical of Lazar because, he claimed to have been to MIT and Caltech. And when that's all been looked into, there are no records of him having ever attended either. So he is at least lying on that score because there's no way you can make those records disappear. And also he can't produce a single person that taught him that remembers him, or a single person he was in classes and lectures with that remembers him. So to my mind, that's just not credible. And there's a lot of pro and con arguments about all the other science stuff and so on with him. I think to your point about the aircraft flying into Area 51, that's true. Every day they've got their own private aircraft that takes off from the international airport in Las Vegas, flies staff into Area 51, and they work for the day and they fly back to Vegas at the end of the day, rather than driving a couple of hours through the desert. And it's an unmarked aircraft and all the rest of it. And none of those people that are working there are talking about what work they do. But what we do know is they test a lot of secret experimental aircraft there. The stealth fighters and stealth bombers were tested there. And, people got pretty poor quality photos and videos of them flying at night before they were publicly announced. And they could be testing all sorts of other aircraft there. But there's no evidence that they have captured alien technology. And there is also no evidence that captured alien technology has been reverse engineered and used to improve our own aircraft or create things like DVD recorders and so on, which some people claim. I actually think people like that are discrediting human ingenuity and technology a lot.
You're on Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie. We've got Peter Hassall and Sam Collier here. We're talking UAPs, UFOs, etc. When we come back, I'm going to ask you a question about the secret Space Force.
Rocket 88.0 FM. After Hours. Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie.
Kiwi band Answer Data there with Unnatural Immunity. This is Paranormal After Dark with the Roadie, UAP roundtable discussion with Peter Hassall and Sam Collier. Peter, Sam, a couple of years ago I saw a video of I can't remember what it's called now. Peter will probably know it. It was the United States Air Force's space shuttle that had apparently been in orbit for a couple of years up there.
Yeah.
God knows what it was doing. So people talk about the secret space program that's supposed to be going on. They claim the space shuttle was unmanned. Now, I haven't looked into it in big detail. Have either of you seen any information about the Space Force, one, supposedly existing, two, rumours of what it's supposed to do, and three, has this space shuttle of theirs ever been manned up there? Because you can't tell me you've got this technology flying around you. It's just flying around unmanned for years on end doing nothing.
Well, so that's the Boeing X-37. It is unmanned, and for instance, it did flights, roughly 800 days in orbit and things of that nature. I think in 900 odd days in orbit. So, yeah, I would say it is unmanned because there wouldn't be any real point in having a person up there for that length of time. It also starts to have detrimental effects on people's bodies if they're in space that long.
Well, unless it's gone somewhere.
When astronauts are stuck up on the space station at the moment. Now, yeah, it's definitely a secret missions that it's doing, and it would be, I would suggest, more to do with spying what's on the ground in other countries such as Russia, China, Iran, etc. At a guess, more than anything else, or potentially developing technology to possibly capture or destroy satellites belonging to other countries. That is a possibility.
Do we know, though, that it's been in orbit? Has anyone tracked this thing? Because 900 days it could have gone around the moon, it could have gone to the moon, it could have gone anywhere.
Well, it's... I don't know if they've tracked it, but they've admitted... I'm trying to remember how it was discovered. Because they didn't... Pretty sure someone managed to track it, which forced them to eventually admit to its existence.
Okay, because the video I saw was of it landing somewhere, so it was obviously common knowledge by then. So has this whole thing brought up the secret space? Is this the catalyst to the secret space program, or is there, have either of you heard of some other stuff supposedly going on in this secret space program?
No, I mean, don't forget they've had secret aircraft and now space programs for a long time. Way back in the 50s, they have a U-2 spy aircraft, then the X-15, and so on. And now they have secret, no doubt there are secret satellites up there doing spying missions that they're not admitting to. A lot of junk in space floating around the Earth. And there's no need to keep a mission to the moon or to Mars secret. They'd be trumpeting it if they could get people back to the moon or people to Mars now. The US would only be too quick to say, look at what we're doing. We're better than everyone else.
True.
We're going to keep something like that quiet.
True. So, Sam, what do you think disclosure in reality is going to look like? Like, what should it look like? Because what we're getting now is not disclosure.
I think disclosure is, we're not going to get it the way that we think we're going to get it. I think what it's going to take is for a craft to come along, land in the lawn of the White House or something like that to that degree, and then it's all going to be out in the open. I don't think we're going to get the footage that we necessarily want. When, even if you have good evidence, someone's always going to turn around and say, no, I don't think it's this, I don't think it's that. I think full disclosure will be craft in everyday human life, and maybe even NHIs in everyday life as well. I think that's ultimately what everybody wants, and no one's really going to feel that full disclosure until that happens. And
Peter, do you think disclosure's not like we're getting all this token gesture stuff at the moment just to placate people? Do you think it's protecting somebody, something, some sort of organisation? I've got a thought on it, but I just want to hear what you think first.
No, I don't. I don't think there's going to be disclosure from any government because, as I said, I don't think any government's really got anything. The only thing they might disclose is better quality gun camera footage from jets and things trying to shoot down UFOs and failing miserably. That would be the only form of disclosure I think any government would have. I would love for a UFO to land on the White House lawn or anywhere for that matter, and extraterrestrials come out and say hello to everyone. But I think it's probably more likely, in our lifetimes at least, that it'll be a indisputable signal from an alien civilization received via radio or laser. And even that would be enough to rock everyone's world if we had absolute proof that there were aliens in space who were intelligent.
Well, I'm going to put it out there. This is what I think, and this is why I think let's just say they are holding something back, and they don't want to disclose it too much. And this is my reasoning, because you've got 4 or 5 major religions in the world that have a lot to lose if somebody says, hey guys, actually there's aliens out there, and guess what, we were created by them, you're God and you didn't do it. And you know, those churches, particularly the Christian churches, still have a lot of power over governments in this world, and I wouldn't put it past them at all to have some sort of, like, I don't know, they're holding back because they don't want to, because the Pope's got a lot of splaining to do, you know. That's just what I think.
Just on that, have you noticed with a lot of these whistleblowers that have come to light, there is that narrative as well, that religious narrative. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen the latest interview with, I think his name was Jacob Barber, the guy that did pick up the egg, and he described feeling emotions. It was a feminine feeling, that it was, you know, made him emotional, and he connected with the craft itself, and it was like being close to God. Lou Elizondo has said similar things, where there was a religious element in the Pentagon, you know, guiding him and helping him make decisions and things like that. A lot of them are actually, I think Jason Sands was another one who came in contact with allegedly an alien person, and he said that he couldn't talk English to this creature, but he was talking telepathically, and he felt, you know, enlightened, and, you know, waves of emotion, and it was heavenly sort of feelings as well. So there is that narrative there with religion as well.
So, Peter, what do you think on that theory? I mean, the churches would have a lot to lose if it was suddenly disclosed that the narrative they've been telling us for 2,500 years is actually, you know, an extraterrestrial.
Well, yeah, it's you're opening a can of worms here. Never talk about politics or religion, but yeah, I mean, there's a few aspects to it. One is it's very interesting. I saw a documentary a while ago, and it's quite surprising, the behind-the-scenes influence of the Catholic Church on the US government, which was quite surprising to me to find out about that. But look, I don't think the government, again, I don't think the government's hiding, has had contact with aliens and is hiding it for that reason or any other reason. And they most certainly couldn't hide any signal beamed to Earth from space, because civilian scientists worldwide would pick it up. So there'd be no way to hide that. Who knows, maybe things like the drones or psyops, as I said, to try and find out the public reaction to the release of information like that.
So let's...
If they don't have it now, if they do have it in the future. But honestly, you know, Catholic Church and all the other religions, they could just turn around and say, well, God created the aliens as well.
Yeah, but what if the alien turns up and says, I created you? That's my point.
Well, then they could just say, you're satanic and you're lying.
Yeah, and most of their followers would buy it. Just to wrap things up, you're talking about radio signals and that there. Now, we had the WOW signal back in the 70s, which may or may not have been something. There's been the odd signal since that may have proved to be something, but for my mind, and I don't know, but I mean, are we looking at it are we looking at it the wrong way with radio signals? Like, we're looking at it from humans because we're dealing with the radio frequencies we're dealing with. Maybe the signals have been sent, and we're either picking them up, but we're not interpreting them as intelligent, or we're not picking them up at all because we're thinking of them as radio waves as we are. Because I just don't, unless it was someone with equal technology to us sitting out there, I just don't know if they would broadcast a radio signal at us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's far more likely that they would be using a tight light band laser type signal, now, because admittedly, we've only had radio for less than a century or so, right? And now we're sort of moving on, and we're emitting less of that sort of stuff to space. So it's possible it would be a more advanced type of signal. It's possible we could detect a civilization because of the light emissions around a star being blocked by large objects that have been put in space. Like a ring world type scenario. It's possible that there's even one exotic idea that ancient aliens could have encoded a message in DNA of animal species or human species. Sorts of communications possibilities. And then there's the zoo hypothesis and other things where we're considered too dangerous and off limits.
Well, you hit the nail on the head.
Everyone else is hiding from us.
You hit the nail on the head there earlier too, though, about we're sending signals out into space, and I wonder if we're not missing out on that. Like, all our radio signals are going out into space, all our TV, and a scene that always stuck in my head was the final episode of the TV series Battlestar Galactica, when they were up in the observation thing on the Battlestar, and they had the screen on. They walked away, and as they went down the stairs and sort of back to wherever they were going, up on the screen came Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. That signal came through. Now, perhaps we should be looking for signals like that, broadcast signals of some sort, that are just inadvertently straying.
Battlestar.
Well, no, but I'm saying,
yeah,
they're picking up a stray broadcast signal, and it seems that programs like SETI are just narrowing in. We can look at this frequency. Shouldn't it be a broader thing where, hey, let's just listen to FM and TV and see what's going on?
Wavelengths, like the hydrogen, which they've guessed would be the wavelength that signals could be broadcast on. Also, SETI is only looking at very small, specific sections of the sky. It's hardly covered any of what's out there at all. And our own radio signals, although they do get progressively weaker the further out they go, would only have travelled in a bubble of 100 odd light years.
That's right, but if someone...
Radio waves travel at the speed of light in space.
But if someone had been broadcasting millions of years ago, like had our technology millions of years ago, those stray TV and broadcast radio signals could conceivably get to us, and we're missing out because we're not putting a net out to pick them up.
Yeah, our net is nowhere near wide enough whatsoever. It's very piddly. So, yeah. We may detect civilizations by other means, as I said, by large objects blocking light from a star, or by detecting, they can now detect the atmospheres of some planets. So the chemical composition could indicate industrial technology and so forth. It's methods which we're only just beginning to work on now.
Bring Sam back into it now. You see, this goes back to the paranormal investigations again. What if it's multi-dimensional, as you said earlier, Peter, and what ghost sightings are the dimensions coming together, and maybe the UFOs are also the same thing. At a certain point in time, when time comes together or dimensions come together, we see these lights in the sky, or we see what we call a ghost, or we hear something in a house. It's just, we think we're the intelligent ones, right? This is way out there, right?
Yeah, well, the more I think about it, the more I think it may be something along those lines, I don't always like to mix my cake and my ice cream, but maybe that's it. Maybe it's something interdimensional, into time, into reality, that sort of thing. It would certainly help explain how, if craft are visiting us, how they can get here so fast, and avoid certain radiation belts and things like that. And how do we not know that maybe a ghost is the consciousness of an alien being? We don't know that. That's all part of the mystery, and that's why it's called paranormal.
Exactly. So it's one of those mysteries out there that we just don't. I guess unfortunately, I hoped as a little fella, and you're probably the same, that in our lifetime we'd finally have alien contact. But I think I'm just going to have to rely on episodes of Star Trek now, because I don't think we're ever going to get it in our lifetime.
Well, hey, what if it's us from the future as well? You never know. It could be that as well.
Well,
yeah, that's yet another thing. And to Sam's point earlier, I think it's sticking labels on things. I've said this before, if a glowing entity is hovering just above the ground, if it's seen in a graveyard or in an old abandoned house or somewhere spooky, it's a ghost. If it's seen elsewhere, it's an alien. If it's seen near a rubbish dump in rural France over 100 years ago by some young religious girls, it's for Virgin Mary. May end up having a shrine dedicated to it. But again, people are reporting seeing the same types of things, not in all cases, but and labels are being stuck on them, depending upon the interpretation of the witness.
Well, it could be swamp gas, couldn't it?
It's always swamp gas. It always comes back to swamp gas.
Sam.
Yeah, it does. Well, Project Blue Book did that. Well, Project Blue Book always labelled it swamp gas, didn't they?
Yeah. Case solved.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up this discussion. It's always swamp gas. That's why I've come to the conclusion. Until we actually see something legitimately, let's just say it's swamp gas. Thanks, guys. This is the Roadie signing off, and here's Sins of Eve to take us out. See you next time on Paranormal After Dark.
You could be